Hey good people, welcome to Russ Can't Fly. Renting versus owning. Let's get into it.
Oh my God, Russ can fly.
Okay, so I'm at my hangar here with Charlie, and you know, it is hot. It is getting ready to storm. We had a little bit of fun, just about an hour. Any chance I get to play, Charlie and I get to know each other better, the better. So yeah, it was a little fun, but you can hear it's starting to get breezy. And I had to get some fuel, so just did a quick hop from Doylestown over to Pottstown, fueled up the tanks, and then did some quick maneuvers, trying to start, feeling what it feels like to fly the plane when I'm doing steep bank turns and that kind of stuff. So yeah, and my landing here at Doylestown, best I've done since I've had the airplane for sure. But not to belabor that, I want to get into this renting versus owning. And look, this is just from my perspective. I'm not getting into this big debate about, when you should rent, if you should continue to rent, if you should buy an airplane. That is absolutely a personal, spiritual, and financial decision for sure. So this is just my take on renting versus owning. So let's start with renting. Okay, so let's start with renting. Now, a lot of you know that I have loved renting this airplane. Me and little Sammy are like hamburgers and french fries. I mean, we just go together for real. And this airplane, I will say, out of all the aircraft I have flown, has really made me a pretty halfway decent pilot. I mean, really, this little aircraft doesn't have a lot of the bells and whistles, but it really makes you mindful of all of the flight characteristics. You got to stay on top of it. It's subject to wind, and so my crosswind landings and all that kind of stuff really got challenged, in Little Sam. The other thing is, I just like flying this aircraft. It was just so much fun. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I do miss it. Like, there are times where I think, man, if I didn't have to do, I need to do another checkout because my time has run, if I could just get in it and just, have the keys and just fly, I'd probably still fly this airplane. I'm not gonna lie to you. And so renting, these different Cessna aircraft was awesome, and I'm not gonna say anything about it. And I'll give you 3 reasons why, renting aircraft is pretty awesome. 1, you don't have to worry about any of the expenses other than paying for the rental. Now, of course, if you're still training, you're paying for the rental of the aircraft and the instructor, and that can kind of a little suck because it is pricey, but that's the nature of the business. But renting aircraft is awesome because, look, something happens with the prop, not my problem. Something happens with the tires, not my problem. Something happens with the engine, not my problem. And so from that standpoint, when you rent, you don't have to worry about all of those types of things, because that's basically the responsibility of the flight school. From a financial standpoint, I think renting can be, better than owning. Now, of course, there's some parameters in there, and I'm not going to get into it. Is it 80 hours a year? Is it 100 hours a year? Listen, I mean, I'm going to tell you, when we start talking about owning, those parameters are not what I think about, and I'll tell you about what that means. But I will say that the financial piece, in terms of not having to worry about, the cost in terms of repairs and inspections and maintenance and all that kind of stuff, that makes renting pretty awesome. The other thing that makes renting awesome is you can fly different aircraft, right? Now, you have to get checked out on them, of course, but you have access to different aircraft when you're renting. And so, as my primary go-to was Little Sammy. But, this flight school, they have other aircraft that they do rent. And that's the beauty of it, for sure. And so, not only would I have access to Little Sammy as a renter, I'd also have access to this airplane, which has a crazy glass panel. I think it's got Garmin G1000. I would also have access to this aircraft here, 500 Gulf Papa, which is also a nice Cessna 172. And I think it's an SP, so you know, some good horsepower. But I would also have access to that Cirrus SR20. Yes, that belongs to Leading Edge Aviation, and I could have access to that airplane. And so that's the thing about renting. You know, it definitely gives you a better expanse of aircraft that you could have access to. And you know, when you own an aircraft, you fly that aircraft, you are, you know, current in that aircraft, you are proficient in that aircraft. And you know, proficiency is a good thing, but sometimes every now and then variety is nice. To be able to fly different platforms, to have access to a certain type of avionics that you might not be able to have in other aircraft. And I'll show you what I mean. Now, when I was flying Little Sammy, these are the avionics I had access to. And you know, like I said, really simple, right? Airspeed, you know, altimeter, vertical speed, and it was just VFR, you know, only. So, but it did have this 430 Garmin in it, and it does have a little glass attitude indicator here. So anytime I'd be renting Little Sammy, these are the avionics I had access to. But if I got checked out in and rented this aircraft, these are the avionics I have access to. I mean, this panel is ridiculous, you know. So you got the Garmin GTN, I believe that's a 750. You've got the same autopilot that I have in Charlie, this GFC, I believe that's a 500. You got this Garmin G1000, and as a secondary backup, you got this Garmin G5. I mean, this is nuts, and you could have access to this. But the thing about it, the beauty about it is, you wouldn't have to do that if you don't want to. You can still do Little Sammy and keep it basic, and that's what I did, because really I just wanted time, you know. But with renting, I would have access to these different types of aircraft, different types of avionics. And owning, I wouldn't have, you know, be able to trade off. Literally, if I was checked out in both of these aircraft, I could fly Little Sammy 1 week, and then I could fly November 1946 Victor the next week, and really, you know, build some time and some proficiency in both platforms. And the last thing with renting, and it kind of goes with the first one, is, you know, really, you don't have to be concerned about whether or not you are going to get yourself into any trouble in a flight, because I got to tell you, you come out here and the ceilings are getting ready to drop, they're not going to hand you the keys. So renting can actually be a safe option, because the people who own the aircraft don't want you to come out here and bend stuff. They want you to bring it back in the same shape in which you found it. And so if you come out, and I've actually done that a couple times, where wasn't sure about the particular crosswind, I was gonna rent Little Sammy. There's a couple CFIs that were in the room, and I said, hey, yeah, I'm on the schedule. And everybody kind of looked at me like, yeah, you're flying 94006, right? And I said, yeah. And they're like, yeah, you might want to check the ATIS again, because you might be able to get out of here, but you might have a little bit of a tough time with that crosswind component getting back on the ground. And so that may sound like a strange thing to, you know, include in the list, but it is. I mean, there is a safety factor, you know. And not only that, there's a safety factor from the standpoint that, look, they've got all kinds of responsibilities on the maintenance. I mean, they've got 100-hour inspections. Some things they got to do 50 hours, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And they have to be on top of this, because in order for the flight school to be compliant with the regulations, you know, that's a must do. You know, there's no phoning it in. So between those two things, that's the third reason why renting can be, you know, a little bit superior. You have your own airplane, You might think, marker light is out. Yeah, I'll squawk that and go ahead and fly anyway because I really want to fly. But flight school, if it's something that squawks out and it's an airworthiness issue, they're not going to hand you the keys. And like I said, if there's a weather issue, they're not going to hand you the keys. So that's a surprising thing that I recognize, that renting can really be a great thing, because, you know, it could keep you from getting yourself into a jam. But the downsides are huge. And the major one is lack of flexibility. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times where I've just wanted to come out and fly. I look at that schedule for Friday. I look at that schedule for Saturday. I look at that schedule for Sunday. And of course, the work week, and I got to go back to work, and I just can't get on the schedule. Or you come out and there is a squawk. And again, remember, the thing that made it great is also the thing that makes it suck. And that, you know, there's a safety issue. You know, something got squawked out. You know, the suction pump isn't really doing what it needs to do, or the RPMs weren't where they needed to be, and therefore they had to squawk the airplane out, and it's not available. And that was the only time you had available, but it's not available. The other thing is you're competing with other student pilots. Like, all of these aircraft are part of the flight school. They're all awesome. They're all well taken care of too. And I will say that, you know, this flight school is awesome, you know, and a little quick plug, I like Leading Edge, you know, and if you're looking to start, you know, flight training, you know, come check them out. Tell them Russell sent you. But at any rate, yeah, I mean, you're competing with all these awesome students. And that competition means that, you know, they're also competing for these airplanes, and they're putting themselves on the schedule and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes that just sucks, because you want to just fly and you don't want to get in the way of anybody else's dream while you have your license and all that kind of stuff. But you just want to fly. So that competition just sucks. And lastly, you got to get checked out in these aircraft, and that can be an additional expense. Now, little Sammy, you know, look, I'm gonna tell you, if you're trying to build time and you want to just really just fly places, you know, you're trying to build time for your instrument or your commercial, whatever, you can't beat a 150 or 152. And so, and in terms of pricing, I believe it's somewhere around $117 an hour wet. I mean, you can't beat that, you know what I mean? And so, you know, the pricing is good that way. But one of the things that you have to consider is I believe every 90 days, you have to get checked out in the aircraft. That means you have to get with a CFI, which is another scheduling issue. Because not only do you have to schedule the airplane, but you have to schedule the CFI, and you have to do that every 90 days. And getting on their schedule, where you have a human being, where they have finite amount of time, you know, sometimes they're not feeling well. Sometimes they're doing their other things. Sometimes they just leave because it's time for them to go on to their next part of their journey. And so that makes it, you know, difficult as well. But there's that other extra expense as well. I mean, you know, you've got somebody sitting in that right seat next to you, and their meter is running as well. And I believe most instructors are $65 to $85 an hour or thereabouts. And so that's an extra expense that you don't have to deal with if you're, you know, owning your own aircraft. I don't have to worry about getting checked out in Charlie every 90 days. But if I was still flying little Sammy, that's something that would come up and could be a barrier. And the thing that could really suck is I could be waiting, and it could be weeks until I could make that happen, you know, between getting somebody in there and, you know, getting current for the next iteration of, you know, being checked out in the aircraft. So, boo, that's a downside, dude, sorry. But other than that, I mean, there is nothing wrong with renting. And, you know, I had a perfectly great experience renting, especially renting here at Doylestown and with Leading Edge. They really helped me, you know, build time and have great experiences. And, you know, it was a shame that, you know, I mean, I did all my flight training at Wings and, you know, just couldn't do anything else there, you know, once I was done. And fortunately for me, the blessing was Leading Edge was here with their various aircraft that, you know, I was able to rent. And yeah, I did some at Northeast as well. That's where I got some of my low wing time for sure. That's what made me realize that, you know, that's the type of aircraft that kind of speaks to me. And that's why Charlie is the aircraft that I have. So, but renting is perfectly fine. Not gonna diss it. But it is inferior to owning, and let me tell you why. Okay, back over to the hangar, and you can see the wind is picking up pretty good. So, owning. It's magical. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. And the one thing that I will say about owning, and I'll put it this way. I know for a fact owning an airplane and keeping it in this hangar makes absolutely no sense financially. Full stop. Let me just say right from the word go, I find owning superior to renting. Now, I do understand that there's some downsides, we'll get to that, but let me tell you 3 quick reasons why owning to me just feels superior. I mean, think about it. Who needs an airplane? I mean, you know, I don't need an airplane. You know, I need food, shelter, water, the good Lord in my life, the Holy Spirit to order my steps. I mean, these, my wife, my daughter, my mom, friends, good food. Those are things that I need. This is totally a want. And not only a want, I'm talking about a serious first world want for sure. But it's one of those things that if you're passionate about, it just makes sense. And aviation, I don't know what it is, it found me, it grabbed a hold of me, and it won't let me go. And if loving aviation is wrong, I don't want to be right. But seriously, I mean, it is such a passion, and it just speaks to me, everything about it. I've seen people who do deep water diving without air, and I think to myself, those people are crazy. But to them, it's not crazy at all. For them, it just speaks to them. They want to see how far they can push their body, how deep they can go before they crap out. And some of them do crap out. And then after that, they still have at it. Some people climb Mount Everest. Some people have a passion for cars. A colleague of mine just bought this beautiful M-Class BMW. And you know, does he need, you know, that car? No, but it speaks to him. It's something about, you know, feeling fulfilled in his life's journey and what he's able to do in terms of creating memories for himself. And so that's kind of what owning is like. It just gives me this sense of like absolute freedom. And I feel like, you know, weather permitting, now I can't go anywhere today. I mean, it looks fine now, but there is some clouds, there are some cumulonimbus that are developing and beginning to tower. It is going to get pretty nasty. So me and Charlie, I'm not touching that. But for some weather, and until I get my instrument rating, you know, I'm still weather limited. You know, I can't just go whenever I want to. For real. But I can go whenever I want to, for real. I mean, it's just one of those things where that last flight that I did, you know, to, you know, Provincetown, or the one that I did to, you know, to, what is it, Block Island. I mean, I just woke up and just said, you know what, nothing's happening. The weather's great here, the weather's great there. I'm going. And I'm just gonna go there and see what I can see. Those are memories that I will never forget, unless, you know, get old and see now, and, you know, that'll be a shame. But there'll be pictures, there'll be these videos, you know, people will be able to see these for how long ever YouTube lasts or whatever. But you catch my drift. I mean, this is the thing that ownership does. It gives me access to things, you know, places, experiences, creating memories that, but for having the airplane, I might not be able to do, because with renting, I am subject to the whims of the schedule, especially during the summer when there's a lot of students. I'm also subject to the whims of the mechanical condition of the airplane. You know, training aircraft, they get a lot of use. And everything on aircraft, you know, on all aircraft break eventually. But just because there's more use, there's more things that need to happen. Sometimes it's just there's the need for a 100-hour inspection. So I'm subject to all of that. But here I'm not. And so it's just this absolute freedom of knowing that Charlie is here. My headphone is gonna be where I left it. I don't have to take my cameras down. I know what's happening with the engine, with the oil, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just amazing that way. And so that was the first reason why. The second reason why is gonna be kind of hard to explain, but I'm gonna do my best. One of the things that would happen as I was creating this YouTube community with all of you, and it has been so great. I will say that a large portion of the joy that I get from flying, and it's huge. I mean, it is huge, but really a large portion of that is all of you. I mean that, I really do. I have people reaching out to me through email, through Instagram, through Facebook. I've met people at other airports. Actually, even today when I flew over to Pottstown, there was a guy who in March bought a Cherokee 235. And so this sense of community and belonging, I don't know about any of you, but I believe that human beings need human beings. And that's our secret sauce. That's our superpower. Our ability to create community. And the beauty is that, like, we find people with similar interests, and we, you know, and regardless of the walk of life or age or any of the boxes that people check on census forms or any of that kind of stuff, none of that really matters in the scheme of things. And I gotta tell you, when I met that gentleman and his wife, and we were talking about our Piper Cherokee 235s, if you would have seen us talking with each other, you would have thought we knew each other forever. So this sense of community that the good Lord has helped me, or has instructed me, or has guided me to create through this medium called YouTube has just been a huge blessing. But a lot of that has been because I've had access to aircraft. And I gotta tell you, while I was renting, the pressure was kind of rough. Because let's face it, one of the things that, you know, I have created is some expectations, and I'm glad that you have them. The primary expectation is every Friday a video is coming up, number one. Number two, for my members, they're expecting every other Saturday a members video to come up. Now, those are a little easier, but one of the things that I definitely try to have a good mix on the Friday, you know, Friday uploads is a good mix between these types of videos where I'm just kind of, you know, in a philosophical thing, and I just want to share some ideas about the parts of journey that don't include flying, and of course the coup de grace, you know, the brass ring, the gold medal, you know, the flying video. And so while I was renting, there was just this unrelenting pressure. What if Sammy's not gonna work? What if the weather craps out on me? What if, you know, I get a flat tire on the way to the airport and I can't do the flight? All those things created all this pressure because I knew, all right, I got about 2 more weeks of footage left. I need to do this flight in order to process the next couple of flight videos. And it really got hard when, you know, back in the day when I was grounded and during COVID, you know, this flight school was closed. Those videos, they sucked. And, you know, it was week upon week upon week, you know, really talking about what it was like to be grounded, and I was complaining and whining and all that kind of stuff. So renting really made that pressure more palpable. Now, I don't feel the pressure as much. I can decide, hey, maybe I'll play hooky from work, do a random Wednesday, come out, we'll shoot to some island or some new airport that I haven't flown to, and it's no biggie. In fact, the pressure has relented so much that there are flights that I don't even put the cameras in. And in fact, there's been times where I have filmed stuff and I'm like, that's not gonna meet the quality of my peeps in terms of where I am now. So I'm not gonna even bother editing that footage. Now you may be saying, I remember seeing that video you did when you did that cross-country flight and the cameras were all weird. Yeah, but I just wanted to show that because, that's part of the journey with Charlie, learning where to place the cameras and all that kind of stuff. So that's why you see that one, because that video did kind of suck. But owning Charlie has really made that whole pressure relent, and so I can really focus on all of you, my Russ Can Fly community. I can answer emails. I can, go into Instagram and, answer direct mail messages and all that kind of stuff. And like today, this flight, you're not gonna see it because it was just a quick run to get fuel. And I did a couple steep bank turns and all that kind of stuff. It was like almost, under an hour of flying, so really wasn't worth it. But I didn't feel like I had this pressure. You have to film this flight. And sometimes it's just so nice to just be able to get in the airplane and really feel what's happening and get used to flight characteristics and air speeds and how much the nose drops when I get to 45 degrees of bank and all that kind of stuff. So that's the second reason. It just really takes the pressure off. The third reason is, and I really hope and pray that this is true, having an aircraft to me is superior because I pray that it inspires other people to think about possibilities. Now that's not just, do you want to own an airplane? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about stretching yourself. I'm not gonna lie to you, I stretched myself tremendously when I bought this airplane, and I'll tell you clearly, and I'm not gonna lie to you, when I first bought the airplane home and I put it in the hangar and I started counting the cost and all that kind of stuff, I had a moment there where I really did kind of freak out. Can I do this? Did I make a mistake? This is financially not smart. And a person who's been somewhat financially conservative over his life, and not a millionaire, not a bazillionaire like some of these people and all that kind of stuff, but somebody who definitely just paid attention to what the good Lord provided and what was going out in terms of what I was buying. Didn't need the fancy shoes, fancy clothes, all of that kind of stuff. Just didn't need it. So this was the antithesis of what I've done all my life. But this is that, okay, if you're gonna talk about stretching yourself and challenging yourself and doing things that seem somewhat impossible, because this really does still feel kind of crazy to me. Like, I own an airplane and I'm putting it in a hangar and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just incredible. But what I'm hoping is somebody is thinking about something that they think, because of their childhood or the type of resources they had access to, or their educational attainment, or whatever the case may be, they see something in their life that is a limiting factor, which makes them think that that is a limiting factor, and it's gonna keep them from doing the thing that really is kind of in the heart to do. I hope that this experience showed you that that doesn't have to be true. And so that's the third reason why this is superior, because I can tell you that this was a huge leap for me. But sometimes these things that seem impossible take a little bit of faith and a leap regarding the same. And I'm hoping that there's somebody out there that's watching this video and has been doubting the, has been cleaving to the mantra, I can't do this because ... That really doesn't have to be true. Now, yeah, there's practical realities. I'm gonna tell you, I can't be an open heart surgeon. Yeah, I mean, that's a reality, because for all practical purposes, I have no desire to go back to anybody's school and to read anybody's books. And I'm not trying to cut cats and pigs and dissect stuff and do with blood, and no thank you. And so yeah, that's something that I can't do. but it's also something that is not in me to do. You get what I'm saying? I mean, if it was, I would go do it. I don't know how this happened. I don't know how this whole aviation thing, I just chalk it up to the good Lord saw fit to entrust me with this part of the journey, and not so much for just my benefit of owning this airplane and putting it in a hangar, but maybe just this whole thing is just because there's somebody out there that he wanted to get a message to, and by example he wanted to show that the impossible is possible, and for you, ma'am, you, sir, to make magic happen in your life. And so that's the thing I love about owning this airplane, just the possibility that it's going to inspire something incredible in somebody. And even if I never get to hear it and my time here on earth is done, that it just, the seed was planted and somebody came behind and watered it. That's the primary reason why I see owning this aircraft as being superior to renting. So yeah, so there you have it. Now, quick downsides: costs a lot of money. Second downside, costs a lot of money. Third downside, it costs a lot of money. No, seriously, I mean, this is an expensive proposition. And you know, it goes without saying, now that I own this aircraft, I'm responsible for everything related to it. The mechanical working order, making sure it's airworthy, make sure it's compliant with all the airworthiness directives, that all comes on me. And there's definitely some pressure associated with that. Of course, the financial piece is huge. One of the things I'll say is, you know, I think a new engine in one of these airplanes is something like, what, $45, $50, $60,000? I don't have $60,000. Now, the thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna plan and put away and all that kind of stuff. And prayerfully, that need won't be for another, hopefully 8 to 10 years from now. But when it is, that's gonna be all on me. It's gonna need tires. That's on me. You already saw we did an oil change. That was on me. And thank you, Brandon, for helping a brother out. But as you can see, all of that's on me. This hangar and the costs associated with same, that's all on me. So clearly that's the downside. When I was renting, didn't have to worry about that. Get in little Sammy, turn off the key. Look, got something going on there. Fix it. Need some fuel, fix it. Got a flat tire, fix it. So then we have to worry about that. So those are the kind of obvious things, you know, that are downsides to owning. But I gotta tell you, those downsides just can't touch the amazing, freeing, spiritual space that owning this aircraft puts me in. So with that, I'm going to end here, and I thank you for, you know, following me on this like really crazy but incredible journey. Your support, you know, has been just absolutely through the roof. My life feels so much better with all of you in it and being a part of this, and I just can't tell you how much of a blessing you all are. All right, so with that, gonna close the hangar doors, wrap this video up, and thank you again. So with that, Russ Can Fly, I'm out. Peace.